Today we are going to discuss characteristic of sound waves. Chapter number is 11.2. Topic is characteristics of sound. So there are three main characteristics of sound, and number one is loudness. What is loudness? Loudness is that characteristic of sound by which we can distinguish between loud and faint sound. Okay, loudness is that characteristic by which we can distinguish between loud and faint sound. Here in loudness, we have basically three factors which affect the loudness. But if we consider the physical condition of ear or the physical condition of the movement of the material medium, for example, the movement of the air in case of wind, then we have five factors affecting loudness. Number A is amplitude. Amplitude is that factor by which if we increase its size, if we increase the amplitude of the waves, then the sound becomes louder. For example, here we have two set of waves. And here we have another example. These are not sound waves but pressure shown in the sound waves. Here the amplitude is smaller and here the amplitude is greater. So it will show faint sound and it will show loud sound. So we can say if amplitude of vibrating body is greater, this is vibrating body. If amplitude is greater, sound is louder. If amplitude is smaller, the sound is faint. Next we come towards area. Area of sounding body. What is area? If we have, say, a small drum, its area is smaller, so sound is faint. But if we have a bigger drum, here its area is greater, so it will produce loud sound. If we have a smaller drum, we beat it, low sound is produced, fainter sound is produced. But if the area is bigger, we have a bigger drum and we beat it with a stick, then louder sound is produced. So loudness also depends upon area. Then there is another factor, C. And what is that factor? It is distance of sounding or vibrating body. For example, you are standing nearby a school bell. You are standing nearby a school bell. When someone hits the bell and you are standing nearby, then what happens? This is the distance of the sounding body. The sound will be louder. But if you are standing away from the sounding body, if distance is greater, then fainter sound is produced. If you are near, then loud sound is produced. These are reciprocal to each other. It means loudness is inversely proportional to the distance. Smaller the distance, louder the sound. Greater the distance, fainter the sound it is. Then we come towards other two factors, which are not the main factors, because these three factors were related to the vibrating body, and now this D is physical condition of, you see, this is not related to the vibrating body, but loudness also depends upon the physical condition of the ear. If the ear is defective, you will hear faint sound, and if you have healthy ear, then you will hear normal sound, loud sound. So physical condition of ear is also a factor for this loudness, but usually we don't discuss it when we are asked in some papers, but you may write it. And there is another factor, and that is direction of wind. This factor is also not related to the vibrating body. It is related to the direction of the material medium used. For example, if direction of the wind is towards you and a person is speaking something from far away distance, you will hear the voices. Why? Because the direction of the wind is towards you. You will hear loud voices. So we can say loudness also depends upon the direction of the wind, but it is not related directly to the vibrating body. Here is another factor, which is intensity of sound. For example, intensity is basically, what is intensity? Intensity is energy per unit time per unit area. energy per unit time per unit area. If it is greater, loud sound is heard. If we can say intensity is directly proportional to loudness. If intensity is greater, what happens? In fact, amplitude becomes greater. Intensity is directly proportional to loudness. Why? Because intensity is related to amplitude, and we have discussed amplitude as a factor. So if amplitude is increased by intensity, and what is intensity? Intensity is energy per unit time per unit area. So we can say intensity of sound is also a factor of loudness. For example, if you speak loudly, then the window panes will not vibrate. Why? Because energy is not very much greater. But if a jet plane passes nearby, then the window panes will vibrate. Why? Because of greater energy per unit time per unit area. So we can say intensity of sound is also a factor of loudness. But usually we only discuss three main factors: amplitude, area, and distance of vibrating body, because these three are related with the vibrating body. And these other, this one is condition, this one is also condition, and this is discussed in A. So if someone asks you what are the conditions of loudness, once it has been asked in exams paper, that write down the conditions of loudness of sounds, then you will have to write these two conditions. If the physical condition of air is proper, normal, healthy, then loud sound is heard. And if the physical condition of the wind, that the direction of the wind is towards you, you will hear loud sound. And if the direction of wind is opposite to you, then you won't be able to hear the far away voices. But they will be able to hear your voices clearly. So this was loudness, and now we will come towards second characteristic of sound. And what is that characteristic? It is pitch. What is pitch? Pitch is that characteristic due to which we can distinguish between shrill and grave sound. What is shrill? Shrill is like children or ladies speak, then it is shrill sound. My sound is also shrill a bit. But what is grave? Grave sound is like this. Yes. What are you doing? It is grave. It is shrill. You see the difference? In shrill sound, frequency is greater, and in grave sound, frequency is smaller. Then it becomes grave. But it is shrill. So we can say that characteristic by which we can distinguish between shrill and grave sound or voices. And it has only one factor, it has factor, and that is frequency. If frequency is greater, the sound is shrill. If frequency is greater, sound is shrill. If frequency is smaller, the sound is grave. Grave, bhari, shrill, cheekhdar. Anyhow, if the frequency is greater, the sound is shriller. And if frequency of the sound is smaller, the sound is grave. And the sound becomes grave because of the apple atom over here. This apple atom. Okay? Ganti. This apple atom is bigger for the boys, and there is no apple atom in case of girls. Therefore, the sound of the girls is shriller and the sound of the boys become grave as they reach, I think, in the age of 14 or 15. Then we hear grave sound in case of boys and shrill sound in case of girls. Okay, next we come towards third characteristic, and it is quality. What is quality? If the two things discussed are same, I'm again telling you, if the two discussed things are same, because many students give its answer wrong because they don't consider the same loudness and same pitch. They leave that and just say we can distinguish between two sounds having same loudness is called quality. They sometimes they leave to mention the pitch, and sometimes they leave to mention both of these. So we will write when loudness is same and pitch is same, then the ability to distinguish the sound is called quality. We can describe it in other formation of the sentences. We say quality is that characteristic due to which or by which we can distinguish between two sounds having same loudness and same pitch. So for example, if you are outside the room and inside the room a flute and a piano is being played having same loudness and same pitch, then you can tell when a flute is being played and when a piano is being played. You can distinguish between the sounds of flute and a piano with the condition that both have same loudness and same pitch. Or we can take another example. For example, you are inside a room and outside the room you have three or four friends and they are talking with one another, and what happens, someone asks you who are these boys outside the room. You can tell them by distinguish between their voices. and that distinguishing factor about the voices of your friends is known as quality. So these are the three characteristics of sound.